Here's my question. Do you think the people that are reinforcing this in universities have given any thought to the broader implications of what happens when these students go out and now don't know how to function or do their jobs or do the things that they should have learned with their degree in the real world?
Okay, it's educational malpractice or malfeasance.
Mm-hmm.
I strongly believe that it's not a sin, it should be a crime. This is a total crime. Because what they are actually doing, and you see this on the West Coast, what you see is that these students are offered college education, and then within the college education that they're offered, like let's just say, let's strip it of the racial thing, and just say low income first generation students are offered free rides into college. Then within these colleges, there is this attitude just within, we'll just talk about grammar, that teaching somebody proper grammar is actually stripping them of their cultural heritage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big no-no. That is a form of oppression. So you don't do that. You commiserate and you foster their voice and their empowerment.
You know, it's so funny actually you say that. Sorry to interrupt, but I have a key point on that one specifically. It's so funny that you say that because I remember distinctly about 3 years ago, I was working with a lot of organizations that had a lot of young professionals, and I was having to teach these kids how to write. I'm like, this is not what I'm doing, but this is the situation I'm in because these kids are graduating and they don't know how to write.
Yeah. And so what happens is that the student pays the money, probably loan, to this institution that is selling them a bill of goods that it doesn't give them. Instead of giving them skill, it gives them what it calls empowerment. It makes them feel very good about themselves. You go there and you are a king and they serve you. They give you whatever you want, credit, food, whatever. You paid the money already. We're here for you. It's a service model. So then the student plings a bunch of money, gets this piece of paper that says they can do something. They can't actually do it. And they get hired, and the company finds out that they can't do it. And either the company now spends resources to teach them, or the student is told to go to a private tutor and then spend actual money for actual skill. So it is a crime. It's criminal. It's
Yeah.
I don't know the right word because I'm not a criminologist, but it's criminal.
Well, and here's what happens though now, because now all the HR offices have bought into this stuff. They all have diversity people now. And so when they tell the person, you need to go learn how to write in order to do this job, the person then goes to HR and says, I'm being oppressed by my boss. Yeah. And HR doesn't do anything. HR is like, oh, okay, well, you don't have to go do this then if it makes you happy. You know when I think this started? It's so funny. I remember about 15 years ago, maybe a little less than that, but it was between 10 to 15 years ago, in higher education, there was this good dude named Clay Christensen who basically came out and said in 10 years, half of the colleges in the country are going to have to fold because they're not going to be financially viable. They aren't recruiting enough students. They don't have the money to succeed and all this stuff. And so what happened at that point is that all of these college presidents, because it was a good time in the there was something going on in the economy at that time, and debt was very, very cheap. And so all of these college presidents started making these major infrastructure investments to make these campuses like, luxury campuses with the best housing and the best gym and all this stuff to woo all these students and to give them this great experience. So they spend their 25, 30, $45,000 a year in tuition and just, and they can remain financially viable. And this was a big thing. I mean, basically there were very few colleges that were left unscathed in this whole thing, but then they all have increased competition for these students. And so then they started hiring all these people that were around student success and student experience. Yeah. And as it kept going, they were just coddling these students and giving them more and more and more of what they wanted to keep the tuition dollars there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Is there some there with these things being connected?
It's absolutely connected. And this is another, this isn't a hypothesis. This is a prediction. Just looking at what happened at the Evergreen State College and applying that as a predictive model. So it might not be true, but this is kind of my prediction. What we're experiencing now is kind of the outburst of the protest. We had a lot of bottled up energy. And if you actually look at what happened at the Evergreen State College, there's all this rhetoric and these ideas that facilitated what happened, but there's also just biological reality to this. It was spring, right? Olympia is very oppressive because it's raining all the time. And now you have like sun, right? Which has a very strong effect on young people. They're filled with hormones. They need to burst out. Also, you have the effect of admissions, the admissions office making Evergreen, I think, 98.7% acceptance rate, right? So you have a lot of college students who aren't college ready. The college hobbling its own ability to bring the students who don't belong there up to speed, and instead of just thrusting them in to these courses, and the students see that they are going to fail. Right. So like, I'm not doing my work. It must be because I'm oppressed. It must be because of the system. And I have it recorded. I have it on film where one of the main guys, one of the main administrators who recruits low-income students is talking to them about revolution, is saying that, in 1957, they hunted us in the streets and now it's no different. They're just passive aggressive about it. Instead of attack dogs, they have grades and expectations. And what happened in the Caribbean, my family, we rose up and we took over the island. And in the back is one of the key protesters, like in this island in the middle of the woods. So they were given a way out. Anyway, so the arc. So let's put that on what happened. All of a sudden, the government says there's a disease, like there's this major disaster. Everybody has to go home. Everything's shut down. Everything is now virtual. If you're a young student, well, if you're young, all of your life is now, you can't go outside, you can't expend the energy. You are now literally, suppressed, let's say, not oppressed, but you're suppressed. And there's a biological need for you to get the fuck out there. Hell be damned. Grandma cough her lung out. I don't care. I have to get outside. I have to do something with this energy. So, and I have a very cynical idea here that there's also something going on with the fact that that virus called Corona or COVID,
whatever it's called these days,
that was allowed to get out of control by a certain government, a certain government who was kind of responsible for the outbreak, just kind of allowed it to go around the world because that government didn't have to then suffer the economic consequences on its own. It could share those economic consequences with the rest of the world. And it would be about now that most people would be saying, this government has done us wrong and needs to be held accountable. And it's very...
One would think.
Very not efficient, but interesting that now all of a sudden every major news organization, except a couple, are now pushing this narrative that has nothing to do with the actual crisis that we are undergoing on an economic level. It's like now it's all about this other thing. It preys upon a weakness of our country that America has. There's an absolute true original sin that can be applied to America called slavery. There's a weakness, and there's also a weakness. There's a propensity for well-meaning people to want to make amends for sin. If you say that they did something wrong, they will want to do something about that. So I was going somewhere. I keep on getting distracted. But so we have this outburst. The outburst is only going to last so long because that energy can't be sustained. What's coming in the wake, and we already see that now, is a whole armada of bureaucracy. And that's what happened at the Evergreen State College. The ultimate outcome of the protest was a complete decimation of the legitimacy of the institution on one level as an education process. Even if you wanted to study social justice protesting, you would not choose Evergreen because they did it so horribly, and every other college in the world is now offering that. So why would you go there if they're showing you even the product? Even if you want that product, it's a bad product. But also, the Bridges administration used that to reorganize, to shut down lines of communication between faculty, to shut down dissent, and to insert all these offices of thought control. $160,000 a year positions of, equity, diversity, which basically amounts to these ritual days. It's completely, you just hire a priest that goes around and causes you to repent for your whiteness. Literally, you go and you repent for your whiteness, and then you have a celebration of another culture. It's a religion, and that's what's going to swoop in. So it's one, the administrators are going to come out as like, okay, well, we can control our workers more or our faculty more through this, because now they can be reported for not following in line within this incredibly porous kind of offense culture that could be anything at any time. We can serve the students better, and we're less liable if the student accuses us of something because we have all this other stuff in place. So ultimately, I think that the outcome of these current unrest right now, as long as we don't go full cultural revolution, and it seems like people want to go full cultural revolution, in which case there's another timeline that I think we're toying with, but ultimately the bureaucrats are going to come out ahead.
Okay.